It is my pleasure to introduce to you Miss Sherlyn Ramsay.
Amen.
She's got a very, very, very important role.
Right. Thanks for that, Denise. Denise invited me to come along, and I feel a bit of a fraud for being here because I'm not your traditional business woman. I don't have a business. Well, I do have a business, but I do not have the traditional business. I'm a steward of a business. Denise is one of my parents. I'm a head teacher of a primary school, God put me in that position when I thought I wasn't ready. It's one of the largest primary schools in England. It's the third largest primary school in England. It's got 940 children.
Wow.
And when my predecessor decided that he was leaving, I wasn't ready to become a head teacher. I thought I'd give myself another couple of years, enjoy the deputy headship, not so much responsibility. But it was as if God was saying, you've got to go for this. And I went for the job, and I also provided myself with a mentor, a lady called Martha Rollins, who is an experienced head teacher, and we spoke through what I might be asked and the questions. She mentored me during that period. On the day before I was meant to start as acting head of this school, I had a crisis of not believing that I could do it. And I remember standing outside church, bawling, and speaking to my pastor and saying, the shoes are too big. I cannot wear the shoes. I don't know why God has called me to do this, but I cannot take on this particular job. And because I've been up against more experienced head teachers, and God gave me the job. So God put me in that position. Okay, so now I've been a head teacher in this school for 6 years. Amen. And God has covered me during that time, and I tell you, He has really, really covered me. And sometimes I get a bit complacent in the thought that He, me and God just walking along the corridors, and it just feels, I forget that it's not me, it's not my strength. So my message today really, and first of all I just want us to look at 2 Samuel 22, and it talks about God is my strength and power, and He maketh my way perfect. He maketh my feet like hind feet, and setteth me upon high places. Okay, and there's a lot more to that chapter, but that's one of my favourite chapters in that it makes me realise I'm not doing this by myself. And when Pastor Jessica was talking and talking about God has chosen you to be an ambassador, I do believe that He has done that with me. I work in a school that is predominantly Muslim, so there's 60% Muslim, only 20% Christian, and that's a mixture. In terms of Indigenous white children, there's probably about 3 across the whole school, Miss Roberts can tell you. So it's a real mixture. We have over 42 languages, so it's a real mixture. And my children know that I'm a Christian. My parents might not know, but my children do, because we share that all the time. And the difficulty is, for me as a head teacher, is not being able to openly sometimes use the Bible to preach. So I can't say to a child, well, God would like you to act in this way, if we look at the examples and talk to them in that way. So that's a hindrance, but at the same time you can still use biblical principles and moral leadership, and your values count. So anyway, so last year, let me get to the point now. So as I was saying, there's often times when I'm going along and I forget that God is in control. I think it's all me. And I think as women, a lot of the time we try to control things, order things, organise things, and so we're so used to sorting that we forget that there's times when God says, right, that's enough sorting. You need to actually place your strength in me, and you need to lean back And not lean on your own understanding, but lean on me and trust in me. And I had an incident last year that really showed me this. And I'll tell you the way I reacted. The way I reacted was not the way I was meant to react. So, it was near the end of term. It was the 20th of July. And if you can imagine, it's quite hot and warm at that time. End of term, we're trying to wrap up. We're going to finish on the Friday. There's a graduation for year 6, letters going out, trying to round everything up. The teachers are tired, but we still had a trip on that particular Wednesday. And the year group leader had organised a trip for the children, 120 children, that's one year group, to go to the seaside. And it was Chalkwell Beach. And we've done this trip on many occasions. She's spoken to the lifeguards for them to accompany the children out onto the mud flats, and they had assured her it would be safe because of the tides, the timing of the tides, and we felt safe in taking this trip. So the children arrived at 11:45 at the beach. The lifeguards, and I sent lots of parents as well, so my role in all of this is to check the procedures, make sure that all the risk assessments are in place, etc. So I'd done all of that. We sent a ratio of 1 to 3, so we had lots of adults and children. And at 11:45, the lifeguards gave a talk to the children about safety, keeping together, listening, etc. He also said to the whole group, the tide is not due to come in until 4:20. Okay, so they were taken out by the lifeguards, about 80, because there were some children who didn't want to go, they wanted to stay by the shore. And the idea was that they were going to look at rock pools, they were going to explore nature, look at crabs and all that kind of thing. So they went about a half a mile out from the shore, and while they were out there, the tide started to come in. And they couldn't see it because it came in from the side. So it comes in from the side, and they were half a mile out. And there was a bait digger, a fisherman, who had been collecting his bait, and he thought, wow, it's probably about time, the tide might be coming in, so I'm going in. He just happened to turn round and to see a group of children in the distance, or a mass of people in the distance, and thought, what are they doing out there? Do they realise that the tide is coming in? So he decided to call the Coast Guard. So he called the Coast Guard, and another gentleman was looking out of his bedroom window. He lives on the coast, looked out of his bedroom and also saw the massive children. He went and put his fishing gear up, his boots that came up, and also came out, and thought there is no way that these children this group of people are going to get back in time before the tide comes in. The other complication is that in order to get across that far out, there was a causeway, and the causeway is a wooden platform. And on either side of the wooden platform is a 6-foot sheer drop. So once the water covers it, you cannot see, or the children would not be able to see where they're putting their feet, and you can't see the edge. Okay, so I believe that God sent those 2 people, first of all. Okay? The 2 of them managed to, the water was rising. The first 40 or so children got out quite safely. The others were struggling. The water came up to the children about here. If you can imagine the water swirling, you cannot see the causeway. One fisherman stood at one end of the causeway, the other one stood at the other end, and said to the children and the parents and the children, walk towards me. Don't look to your left or to your right, just walk towards me. And some of them didn't want to put their, because they couldn't see where their feet were going. So I'm going to tell you now that God got everyone out. He got everyone out. He got everyone out. There was, I would say that the children came out of it seemingly unscathed, but there were adults. The adults in charge found it more difficult, and there's still some who are getting counselling even now as I speak, because one in particular dropped off the causeway holding a child, cannot swim, and but the fisherman pulled her out.
Wow.
Okay, so but she still had nightmares about losing the child. So God got the children out. They came back to school and they told me the story. And instead of me, I did say thank you, Jesus, thank you for protecting, like you have always done.
Yeah.
But my first reaction was guilt. How could I have put the children in this danger? It might not seem that I can't describe it, but it was also thinking about what could have happened. So my mind kept replaying what could have happened and the responsibility. And the reason why, as well, why I was in that position was the local authority then needed to do an investigation. When they did the investigation, it came to light that there was a piece of paper that I was meant to fill out, which I didn't know about, and most head teachers in the borough didn't know about, that needed to be filled out, saying that the lifeguards were responsible for the children because they were the water experts. But because that piece of paper was not filled out, that then made me responsible for the lives of those children. Fair enough, but my thought was, if you call yourself a lifeguard and you live in the area, then you should also, there's no other job for you other than to make sure that people are safe near water. So anyway, so that happened. So they found, the findings came out for that. And I sat down and I thought, I could leave it here, but suppose this happens to another group of children. So the local authority were all covering their back. You didn't do this piece of paper and say, but that's nothing to do with us. And all the politics that go. That's why you have to have moral fibre, because when people start covering their backs, and you could easily try and do the same, you have to remember, no, that's not what God would want you to do. You need to have values. You need to know what God has called you to do, and He would want you to be honest, and He would want you to be upstanding. Not just to cover your own back and make it easier for you. So what then happened was, I said to the local authority, said, Rob, these are our findings, I think we should leave it there. And I said, no, we're not going to leave it there, we're actually going to find out why this happened. I want the South End local authority to investigate the lifeguards and their role, so that this never happens again, because it could be there's other children who are out there. So that opened another can of worms, and all the way through this I'm bawling, job, crying. My reaction was not, God is that, look what God has done. He saved these children, and you know He's got this one. So instead of me doing that and leaning, I was trying to organise, control, feeling emotional, and all the rest. And really, what I needed to do was to sit still and say, God has showed you already, believe what He has shown you. And I think one of the messages I want to give you today is that there's always the signs that God has worked things out. When we're worried, when we're concerned, whether it's in our marriage or a relationship or at work, there's signs. But because we're so entrenched in our own emotions and the potential of what can happen, we don't see it. And sometimes I just think it's really important that we stop and think, okay, let's just be still, let's just stop worrying. What do I know about what God has done for me? What has He done for me? And then start counting the many things that God has done for you in order to believe that He's got this huge thing that you consider to be huge, He's got it covered. And I think if we can manage to do that, it will save us all the anxiety, it will save us trying to control and organise and manage, because He's already got it covered. So even as I speak now, there's another investigation going on with the local safeguarding board, but it was around Christmas time when my pastor was speaking, when he said sometimes we make it all blown up, enjoy the crying, enjoy the, my job is in jeopardy and all that kind of thing. And really I just thought, stop it. God told you from the time He saved those children, He told you He's got it covered. No need to worry anymore. Whatever happens, you have done what you were meant to do. in order to make sure that this never happens to another group of children. And that's all you're required to do. So my message is, God's got it covered. We don't have to try and organise everything. We don't have to be in charge all the time. And we just, we just need to hand it over to Him.